Kevin Cooney, PhillyVoice.com. Got a interesting look at the Phillies' first series, or I guess I should say the homestand, the first two series, and how this team is already different. Kevin, welcome back, man. How you been?
I'm good, Mike. Boy, that better be a good rally towel for the Flyers at this point. You know, that better be like extra exorbitant.
Yeah,
you know?
man. It's not good over there. What are they letting, like 3,500 people in? I heard there was half that the other night.
Yeah, it's not good, but you know, the baseball team's playing well, the basketball team's playing well, and well, there's always a lot of draft picks for Howie Rose.
Well, yes, and what a difference a year makes in the bullpen. Kevin, let's talk about that. You take out Vince Velasquez's disaster the other day of historic proportions. He's the only pitcher in history to have the line that he had where he gave up no hits, struck out 4, and somehow still gave up 4 runs. It's unbelievable. Only Vince Velasquez. You take that out, and this bullpen has been maybe the best in baseball in the first 6 games.
Yeah, and the one thing that, and I wrote about this for Philly Voice, is that you're seeing them fall more into a pattern that we got used to with Joe Girardi when he was manager with the Yankees. You know, Girardi last year had a mix and match and try to find something out of nothing in a short sample size. You know, I think you've seen a definite pattern here. He goes to Neris in the 9th. He likes Alvarado in the 8th, being the hard thrower. And he's willing to let Bradley and Brogdon handle the big matchups maybe in the 6th and the 7th innings. I think that's a good formula. It's kind of what Joe always did. Again, in New York, Dave Robertson was kind of a floater there. You know, they had Chapman, obviously. They had Mariano for a long time when Girardi was the manager of the Yankees. I think you're seeing the start of the pattern that made Girardi a good pitcher to handle, or a good manager to handle the bullpen. And I think the one thing you're going to have to see is how often will he have to go to the bullpen on those first 3 starters. You know, yesterday Aaron Nola only goes 4 innings, and you worry about them getting taxed. You know, they had the day off today, which is good. You hope you get a couple days off with Wheeler and Eflin going, but they're definitely going to need them for 4 and 5. So it'll be interesting to see how Girardi uses guys going into the rest of the way. But this is a more familiar pattern than we're used to.
Right, and I guess a pretty long down the road question is, in your opinion, Kevin, if the bullpen is simply better, are they a playoff team? I mean, is it that simple? Is bullpen better? You're good enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, they would have made the playoffs last year. Now the playoffs were expanded, but they would have made the playoffs last year if their bullpen was at 5.5 as opposed to a 7 ERA. I mean, so they have good starting pitching. I believe the top 2 is Wheeler and Eflin at this point. I have my concerns about Aaron Nola, especially the way he pitches in bigger spots, namely September and against division rivals. But I think that the starting pitching is good enough to get them to a playoff spot as a wild card at least. Their lineup should click. The only other thing, Mike, I worry about eventually, and it wasn't proven this series, these 2 series against the Braves and the Mets, I don't think their infield defense is all that good. Especially, I'm not a huge believer in Hoskins at first and Bohm at third. But at this point, they're going to slip their way out of a lot of things once the summer gets going.
Yeah, I know the defense from Bohm was something that a lot of people were worried about. I mean, I thought he got better as the year went on. He made the play on opening day. But, yeah, he's not Mike Schmidt over there, and you're right about Hoskins. But obviously this team defensively was a mess last year. They were better in the first series. Pitching and defense, amazingly enough, might be the difference. But what is your take on this lineup, Kevin? Because a lot of people think, hey, they're very deep. You go all the way down to number 7 with a bunch of guys. That 8 spot's going to be a question, it looks like. But is the lineup as good as people think it might be?
It's good. You see, the problem for the Phillies has always been, Mike, and we talk about it through the years. They'll have games where they'll put 12 up. And you go, wow, this lineup's really explosive and everything. And then they'll go silent for 3-4 after it. It's been consistency. They have not been able, really since the 2009-2010 Phillies, to piece together a steady approach and a steady production level game in, game out. it's better if you're scoring 5 a game and it's 5 every night, or 4 and 6 and 5, and you're in the same neighborhood, than 11 and 1. And that's what I think that they've had to kind of focus on with this lineup. I think the power's going to be there. I think, when you have Hoskins and Realmuto and Harper and Bohm, and you'll get some sneaky power from Gregorius and Segura, they're going to be fine with home runs, especially when the weather warms up in that ballpark. Look, I worry about the left fielder a little bit. I think he's showing signs of age. I like his leadership. I think he's a respectable outfielder, but Andrew McCutchen is not Andrew McCutchen with the Pirates in 2014 or 2015. So I think people have to realize that until they issue the contract, say ride it out. They're going to have to do something about center field. They have no in-house options that can take that, to be bluntly honest, going forward.
Yeah, right now, obviously, the 8-hole and the center field spot is a little bit of an issue. Kevin Cooney joins us. Now, you brought up, I didn't let that slip, that you went with Eflin and Wheeler, and that you do have some questions regarding Aaron Nola. Do you think that the Phillies are evaluating that in season, and that if it got to a playoff series, if Wheeler pitches better or Eflin's having an outstanding year, that they would, in fact, do something there?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point because, and I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it. We all put numbers 1, 2, and 3 on guys and say, this guy's an ace and this guy's not. To be honest, it's a little overrated until you get to a playoff setting. And I think right now, if you're asking me, how would I line up those 3 in a playoff setting if I was in a best of 5? I would put Wheeler 1. I would put Eflin 2, and I would put Nola 3, because I would want Zach Wheeler to throw potential Game 5. I just have more faith in Zach Wheeler than I do Aaron Nola in this spot.
That is going to be interesting to see, because he has pit. We talked about this about a week or so ago. Is at the end of the year, he's going to have good numbers most likely, but it's how he gets to those numbers and when those numbers come into play that might be a bigger part of this whole thing for Aaron Nola. And I thought yesterday, you have a 4-run lead at home, in this part of the season. You hold on to that, and he kind of grinded his way through it, but he did not look sharp in that. How do you think the 4 and 5 spots kind of are going to work itself out? Do you think these two guys will ultimately be here all season long, or are they looking to upgrade those two areas?
Mike, I think there's a better shot for Chase Anderson to stick all year. Matt Moore is one of those types of left-handers who's just going to try to paint corners, and while he may get in a role where he gets comfortable and he's able to, be a nice little part of the pun change-up pitcher, given the power he got with Wheeler and the power with Nola and Eflin's ability to move down in the zone, maybe Moore could benefit off that. But realistically, if they're going to look for a spot to replace a pitcher, I think it's going to be Matt Moore's spot. And they would have to. One thing they're going to have to get, Mike, is they're going to have to get a left-hander if they do pull Moore out of the rotation. You can't go 5 righties again. I think we've seen that over the last decade, and that hasn't worked that well.
Kevin Cooney, Philly Voice. You wrote a little bit about it in your piece today over at phillyvoice.com, but what do you do with Velasquez? I mean, I know he gets paid a decent amount of money, but it's almost like he's the one cancer in that bullpen. Everything is going so well. You went to him, and boom, there it went. The wheels came falling off. So what are the options there?
By the way, let's not leave out David Hale in this. David Hale was not good the other night either. 2 of the 3 holdovers from last year. I mean, I almost feel bad for Velasquez because
I do too.
I think he is the ultimate change of scenery guy at this point. I think he really, but they don't have a replacement. I mean, you bring Spencer Howard up to be a long man? Probably not. I mean, they don't really have that many. I was talking to a scout that I know, and we were talking about this yesterday, and it's like, hey, what do you do? What do you do? Because for Velasquez's sake, I'm rooting to get out of here just to try to get, because somebody will see his potential, and somebody will look at those 4 strikeouts that he had in that outing against Metzelman on Tuesday night and go, I can fix that guy, okay? But for that to happen, it has to be somewhere else. It's not going to be here. And it's not his fault that this organization put so much eggs in that basket with him after that game against the Padres back in 2016.
There's no question that the guy's got talent. I think they should have made the decision probably earlier, Kevin. Do you agree that they should have said, look, you're a bullpen guy, focus and concentrate on that? They keep putting him out there like, hey, you had a shot to be in the rotation. You know, they've yo-yoed this guy so much. It was, they should have made a decision. You're a bullpen guy, focus on being that guy.
Yeah, and they were stubborn in that sense. And I'm not even sure he's an extended innings guy. He's one of those guys that let him go throw for an inning, kind of let it all hang out.
Yeah, the one inning he threw was fine. It was the second one that he got into trouble.
When he has to go sit down and kind of, think about it and try to get it back in that groove to get back out there is when he's always had trouble. So personally, what they should have done for him is non-tender him. He should have not been brought back this year. But I get it. They were hamstrung. They didn't think they would get as much bullpen as they did. They were worried a little bit about the budget early in camp, having to go maybe get paid $6 or $7 million for number 4 or number 5. They wanted him as competition. I understand what they were thinking, but hindsight being 2020 would have been best for all parties involved to do the separation.
All right, Phillies have the off day today. Kevin Cooney has a nice piece about this team. Read more at phillyvoice.com at Kevin Cooney. By the way, I asked you about that Nola because I saw you tweet the other day that you're expecting him to be the Game 3 starter.
Yeah, at this point, I'm the one guy who's not all in the Aaron Nola, and I think I'll admit, I think the Septembers have gotten to me.
With good reason, by the way. With good reason. I agree. I said if I had to pick one game, I'm going Wheeler.
Yeah, and I would take Eflin in Game 2 because I think Eflin, I'm not trying to question Aaron Nola's toughness, but Eflin's stuff, I think, just plays in those types of circumstances better.
All right, Kevin, baseball's back. The Phillies feel different, so hopefully this will be a fun season. These last 11 have been pretty miserable, and I look forward to talking to you more about it, pal.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Kevin Cooney, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline at Kevin Cooney on Twitter. When it comes to baseball, I love talking to Kevin. He's really good. And, of course, he, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.